Good morning. Good morning, First Fridays. Thank you. Yeah, so.
Good morning.
You could totally play that. Absolutely.
Nobody ever goes to the front 2 rows. Good with me. It's like church.
It is. It's just like church. Nobody
It is.
wants to sit in the front.
Back row.
Stay in the back.
That's
you're
me.
good in the back, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our First Fridays October event. We do have some friends online this morning, so we're thankful for them as well. I am Cassie Lamb, and I am on the board here for First Fridays. And what'd you say? Oh. This is for online, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'm Cassie Lamb. I am on the board for First Fridays, and it's so great to see some friendly faces from our Empower Women's event last week, some new faces of people that I haven't got the chance to meet yet, and we're so excited to hear from Mo this morning. Before we get started with her presentation, we always like to do a little bit of an icebreaker, and so this morning, if you could take your phone out and make sure it's on silent, but also turn to your neighbor and show them the photo on the screen of your lock screen and tell them why you chose that photo. We'll give you a couple minutes and then Brian will come up and introduce Monique.
I hate to break up the wonderful conversations of why you have the photo that you have on your background, but it is my pleasure this morning to introduce our guest speaker, Mo Moss. And so Mo is the program director and also on-air personality for Rhythm and Praise 94.1. And so I guarantee you, after you leave today and you go to your car, you're going to tune in to 94.1. Because I have, and I'm hooked, and it's really good stuff. So also, while you still have your phone out, check out your app store and RNP 94.1. Grab that app and you can stream it through that app. And you can also stream online. And you can hear Mo from 2 to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And whether you're driving around like I am in the afternoon for meetings or picking up the kids from school or doing the whole travel soccer thing on Saturdays and you're just driving all over the place, listen to Mo Moss. She is awesome. What's really cool about today is usually with a radio personality, you only hear them on the radio, but we get not only the audio, but we get the visual as well today with Mo. So she's got an awesome radio voice. You're going to hear that. And she's got a wonderful presentation and a powerful message for you today. I know you will be blessed. So without further ado, Mo, take it away.
All right. So I have to stay in this box, and I'm a walker. So I have my notes here because I'm also a talker, so I'm going to have to stay on schedule and pace today. So like Brian said, I'm Mo Moss. I am the program director and afternoon show host for Rhythm and Praise 94.1. A shameless plug, new gospel radio station here in town. We just launched about 3 weeks ago. I'll tell you a little bit about that as we go on. But today I want to theme this kind of around my journey and do it anyway. So I want to kind of walk you guys through. I've never really had the chance, spoke at Taylor a few months ago, spoke at Grace College a few months ago, but never had the opportunity to really tell specifics throughout my whole career journey. You're looking at me like, you look really young. How long has that career been? So 28 years old. So I want to show you guys not just the highs, because I've been in a really rewarding season the past couple weeks, but the lows and every kind of step along the way. So where I'm at right now was never really the plan. Didn't really ever think I'd be necessarily in radio or as a program director. grew up in a huge sports family, big basketball family, so it wasn't really just in the vision. But as I look back, and of course hindsight's 20/20, as I look back, I kind of can see now, like I was a talker, had a big personality. You know, the talent show when I was a senior in high school should have shown me something when I performed Aretha Franklin RESPCT. I had two background singers, and so I always kind of talked, and then, you know, my mom would always get the report card that said, Mo's a really good student. Well, maybe they didn't say really good. Mo's a good student, but she did talk a lot this quarter. So that was always the feedback. And then my grandma, everybody always tells me, you are a lot like Dixie Stellar, which I never got to meet as my mother's mother, but she was a woman leader for her time. She was a pastor. She was an evangelist. She, in the 80s, 70s, she'd be in her late 70s right now. She was a woman speaker, a woman pastor when that was not popular. So she was a trailblazer in her own right. And a lot of people say I have the personality of Dixie. They're like, you're a little Dixie when I go back to the area where she's from. So I got to tell you a story about Dixie. Grandma Dixie would go to different revivals during that time. And she'd be in her Lincoln Continental. My mom would be in the back seat. She was also a single mother. And I really look up to her. And so she was driving to the revival, and Dixie was a leader, but Dixie was kind of all over the place. She would put her mascara on while she was headed to the revivals. Dixie'd be putting the pantyhose on while she was headed to the revival. So one day, on the way to the revival, my mom's young, she's in the back seat. My grandma Dixie's in the front seat. She's putting her pantyhose on while she's driving to the revival. She's putting her mascara on. Now, granted, she's the singer and the speaker of the revival, and spoke all around Greenwood, Indiana, and then moved over to Illinois. So she's weaving, driving real fast, gets pulled over. And because she was, bobbing, weaving out, the cop walks up to the door and says, I see you've been, weaving, going kind of fast. And she's, getting her mascara, pulling her pantyhose up, doesn't care. And she's like, officer, I am so glad you stopped me. See, I have to speak and I have to sing at the revival just 15 minutes down the way at Greenville Church. Now, because I'm so glad you stopped me. Now, would you put on those lights? And would you escort me to Greenville? And like any officer at that time, I guess, he said, yes, ma'am, I will. And he got in the police car, he put his lights on, and he followed. And my mom said she always remembers that story. She said when they got to the church, she said the officer acted like that's why he was pulling her over. He showed her, he pointed at the church like, that's it, and just let her into the church. So in many ways, I am a young Dixie Stellar, which I take a lot of pride in, taking my grandma's legacy. So talking was, I guess, always kind of part of the journey as I think about it. But how I started out, I grew up in a big basketball family. My older brother played basketball overseas, played for the University of Indianapolis. My younger brother played basketball for the University of Indianapolis. My dad was a big basketball player. For those of you that know sports, he had over a 40-inch vertical. For those of you that are like, what is that? He could jump and he could dunk. So I grew up just having those genes, very athletic, naturally talented at basketball, naturally talented at sports. Didn't really, to be honest with you, have to do much. The talent really just came. So as I'm a young kid, playing basketball, growing up, we were always in the gym, always in the gym. My dad is the building and grounds man in the town I grew up. So I grew up south of Indianapolis, moved here 4 years ago to start the station, and grew up in a town called Franklin, Indiana. And my dad's the building and grounds man for the rec center there. And after we got done with practice, you better believe he was opening that gym so we could go get more shots up for 2 hours. So literally we breathed, ate, and slept like basketball. That was it. And I loved it. Ever since I could dribble a basketball, that my dad said, you're getting a college basketball scholarship, and that's how you're getting through college. And that's kind of what we did. So as I grew up, as I was in my early years and middle school, I kind of started to get my validation. I found success in basketball. I thought that was really the only thing I was good at. And so that's, if I had a good day playing basketball, it was a good day. If I didn't have a good game, I was going to hear about it after my game, and it didn't make me feel so great about myself because I found my success, I found my validation, affirmation in basketball and sports. So as I grew up, middle school, high school, of course, I got, better and better. And then as I go into my senior year, getting better and better, one of the best in the county, naturally talented. What I wish I would have known, though, when I was younger, is that most battles are lost and won in your mind. And I didn't know that then. I was very talented, but had a bad attitude and felt like I could work hard whenever I kind of wanted to. So as I went into my senior year, naturally talented, so I knew I was going to get a scholarship. My bad attitude, I guess I just went with it. So was good throughout my senior year, having a good year, and then ended up dislocating my shoulder. And that turned into 12 dislocations my senior year of high school. And so I continued to play ball. My dad said, you put a brace on that thing, you go out there and play. So, and I wanted to. It's just, when I think back, I'm like, I don't even watch basketball anymore. But one game I dislocated it, went to the trainer, and she's like, yeah, I think you should, go, get that popped in and go to the, hospital. And then it ends up popping back in. So what do? Back out to halftime, back out there. I'm like, I already got 19 points. We got to get to 25. So that was just kind of the mindset, always playing tough. But I was just having a conversation that volleyball, I would, such a wussy, basketball will run you over. Volleyball, when it hits your wrist, you know that feeling? I'm never. Anyway, I was having a conversation earlier with a volleyball player and I was like, So anyway, senior year, have some dislocations. So my plan kind of changed. I was like, when I went into my senior year, I'm thinking small Division I college, nice D2. So the plan kind of changed, and I was like, I'm going to get surgery, and I'm going to go to a junior college, a good junior college. So do it anyway. I got to show you guys me in college. You can kind of see because I don't look like that anymore. So there's Mo, got a nice little arm. We're going to go back. You guys see that? Then we're going back, so y'all don't stare at that. Was going out of my senior year. I'll be honest with you, I can't tell my story without God being so intertwined in it. He literally changed my whole trajectory, my path, as I went to college and I was 19 years old. So I went to college, to a junior college, as you just saw, and that year I ended up having to get surgery. I popped my shoulder out again. I thought I was going to surgery, then I ended up having to take my whole year. I was going to redshirt. If you don't know what that means, you get paid to get a college basketball scholarship the whole year, but you're out for medical reasons. So I popped my shoulder out playing the University of Southern Indiana, and that whole year, basketball was taken from me, and it was different. I wasn't waking up at 5 a.m., having workouts, then going to class, then lifting, and then going back to workouts. I didn't have anything. I was going to class, and then I would come back to Indy sometimes because I went to college in Illinois. So during that year, something started to shift in me. And basketball, it was still important, and I still loved it, and I still love sports, and I was still talented. But you ever been somewhere in your life, and it could be a good or bad situation, but you know you're supposed to be somewhere else? And that's where I was, 19-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid. And I knew in my heart I was supposed to be somewhere else during that first year. So I start talking to members that I was involved with church. I think I was only involved with church maybe a couple months at that point in my life. So I started talking to some youth leaders, some people I had interacted with previously, and two people I knew, they had previously been affiliated with the Los Angeles Dream Center. And if you don't know what the Los Angeles Dream Center is, Pastor Matthew Barnett, it's a huge hospital, I'm going to paraphrase it, in the, I think, 70s, 80s, that was renovated. It's in the heart of LA. A huge hospital. On each floor, there's a homeless unit, there's an addiction recovery unit, there's a unit for single mothers. It's a very well-oiled machine, thousands of volunteers, very big organization. Two leaders from the Los Angeles Dream Center started the New York Dream Center, which is in the heart of New York City. So as I'm like, okay, what should I do? I don't really know. I have this war inside myself, and I really feel a tug, like, this isn't it anymore, Mo. So you guys know where it's going. I end up making the decision to go talk to my coach. And I told my coach, because at this point I'm like, I love Jesus, I throw all my secular shit. You know, when you're first like, you're on board, I'm like, so I go to my coach, I'm like, God told me to move to New York City, you know, in the middle of my basketball career. And my coach is like, that's funny, because God didn't tell me that. But I really felt like that's what I should do. And I'll be honest, I never had a peace like that peace, knowing that's where I should be. Now, it was one of the most uncomfortable seasons of my life, but I never had a peace moving there. So I go to have the conversation with my parents. Everything I worked for, you know, up until the high school point, you're 18 years old, you've worked for so much. So I had the conversation with my parents, like, I'm going to leave this scholarship, and I don't know if I'm going to go back to school. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm going to take this a day at a time, but I know this is where I'm supposed to go as a 19-year-old kid to move to New York City. My mom and dad were like, okay. Honestly, they were like mad, actually. They were not happy. But one thing about my parents is they're always going to support. So they drove me to New York City. I pulled up and I thought there was going to be like celebrity singing. Nothing like that. Pulled up. There was a peace, but it was so uncomfortable. Pulled up to, I was doing a volunteer internship, not making a dime the whole year, right? The hood it was the Dominican Hood, Washington Heights in New York City, 177th Street. And I was like, all right. And then, you know, I'm light skinned, so everyone there's like, hey, mommy, thought I was Dominican. It's all good. Don't speak Spanish. And it was just a whole whirlwind. So I get there and I start getting, you know, involved. And man, this is where God started showing me that serving is the opportunity. It leads to other opportunities. So serving opens a door for opportunity. And this is where God really showed me that. He also showed me the quote that I live my life by is that you can't complete your calling in your comfort zone. And that year was so uncomfortable, but it is still the most rewarding year of my life. Every day we were doing something different. We were in Harlem one night. We were in the Bronx another night. We were in Brooklyn another day. We would serve homeless. We would serve underserved population. I loved it. It was so rewarding. And I learned in that season how to serve people. Was I qualified? Not at all. But I will tell you one thing I was willing. And I know a lot of you in here today, whether you have a business, whether you're working for someone, whether you're a CEO, or you haven't even got started in your business, a lot of you could probably attest that you shouldn't be in this room. You shouldn't maybe be at the business you're at. But you were willing. You're willing to put in the time. Maybe you're willing to start the business that nobody was willing to do. You're willing to do lots of things that other people weren't willing to do. And I think in this year, I think I am living some of the rewards because I was willing to serve people for a year of my life, not knowing if I would do the same thing 4 years, because I served, and because I was willing, because I went to my community, not with my hands like this, like, how can I receive from you? But when I went to my community in New York City like this, like, how can I serve you? How can I bless you? How can I help you today as a 19-year-old kid? Like, sometimes I think I was more mature than I am now. But I was willing. And one thing about God is you can't do his part and he won't do your part. You have to be willing to do the first 10%. And like I said, God is so woven into my story, and this is kind of where it started and sprung from here. So every time I do the first 10% and step out in faith, God always meets me with the other 90. But I have to be willing to step out in the first 10%. Like when I went to New York City, I had to step out. When I went to Olney, Illinois in a junior college, I had to be willing to step out in the first 10%. There were other opportunities, but I felt that's the one I was supposed to go to. Moving to Fort Wayne, which we will get there, I stepped out on the, Fort what? I had to be willing to step out on the first 10%, and God always met me with the 90. So one thing about God is you can't do his part and he won't do your part. So I ended up moving, back. So I did that program for a year. It was great. There was a high, and then you leave and you're like, okay, I'm 20 years old. What now? Do I go back to school? All I've ever known is basketball. Like, you go to school without playing basketball? That was a real epiphany for me. Like, this is what y'all do? So I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? And I want to tell this story real quick because when I came back from New York City, I was trying to get a job anywhere. I was like, and it had never been like this. I would work in summers and stuff, but basketball was hours of my day, every day, basketball in school. So I'm trying to get jobs anywhere. Chick-fil-A wouldn't hire me. I'm like, Chick-fil-A? I thought they hired all Christians, so I was like, I was real confused by this. So Chick-fil-A, Target, oh, I can't even believe I'm saying this. I got a job at Beefcake Burgers. That's right. Goodness gracious. In Greenwood, Indiana. And, oh man, wow. I remember people coming in from my hometown and I was like, oh my gosh, how can I help you today? And like telling them about the triple cheeseburger. If they eat it, they'll win a prize. Like, not a low point in my life. God has done a lot since then. It's not a low point. It's part of the process, but woo-wee, Beefcake Burgers. So I remember I was there 2 weeks and I had applied at Fifth Third to be a teller and I got a job and they called me and they were like, Monique, we have a position open for you. And I was like, Beefcake, it's been really nice working here, but I'm gonna have to go. So I was there 2 weeks. As soon as I got that job, as soon as I got that call, I was like, I am out of here. So I went to work at Fifth Third. I worked as a teller. Loved that job for 4.5 years while I went through college. I went to college at the University of Indianapolis and got into communication. How did I get into communication? I couldn't tell you. I had looked at different programs and I knew I could talk and I was like, let me start out with that. I did watch Joyce Meyer on TV and I know this is so random, but I remember her talking about like dreams. I don't even know how, where, I can't remember the specifics of it, but I remember her saying like, if you have a dream, do it. And I remember, I don't know, there was like media or communication that was like kind of dropped in my spirit. I don't know if it was like my conscience or God. I really don't know who it was. But anyway, I went in that direction. I remember telling a friend and they were like, are you sure? Like, cause first I wanted to go into like counseling and social work and God knew way better. Cause I need the counseling and the social work. So I went into the University of Indianapolis, got involved in their communications program, and loved it. Got involved in radio, and there's this thing called the radio bug that some radio people get, and I just loved every part about it. I did a show called Sunday Soul as I was in college, and loved every part of radio. And so, graduated from the University of Indianapolis. I'm gonna give you a kind of speedier version of it. So graduated from the University of Indianapolis, started looking for a job. I worked at a job, a hip hop station, a country station. I did promotions at a station. I worked at another job in Bloomington. So I'd been working at different genres of jobs. And then I saw a job online in Fort Wayne. And I had already talked to different stations, country stations, R&B stations, and this was a gospel station, and I was like, okay. And it was called Fort Wayne's rhythmandpraise.org. That was the name. And I was like, okay. So I interviewed for it. This was early 2018, and I got the job, and I was like, okay. I was like, let's do this. Saw the ad online, moved to Fort Wayne in February of 2018. So that's really where my story of what I want to give you some takeaways today of where my story kind of not begins, but God has shown me, and I've learned a lot of things in just these 3.5 years. I moved to Fort Wayne in February of 2018, didn't know a soul in Fort Wayne, but I really did. I felt a tug, I definitely did, to come here. And I was like, let's do this. So I was hired as the program director and the morning show host at Rhythm and Praise. And if you guys don't know much about it, I'll give you a little bit of the vision. So before I got there, so let me say this, because I know WBCL is a radio station, Rhythm and Praise is a radio station. We are sister stations. WBCL has financially backed a lot of everything that Rhythm and Praise has done. We are both owned by Taylor University. We're separate radio stations, but both owned by Taylor University. But where people are like, are you a part of WBCL? Is that WBCL has given a lot of financial backing, and we're out of their studios, all of that, to Rhythm and Praise. So that's how we come together, sister station. So the executive director of WBCL had a vision and had talked with some people in his small groups and some people in town, and found that there was a need for the Black community in Fort Wayne, that we needed access, we needed representation, we needed a station that covered the whole city of people that sounded like us, looked like us. We have other Christian stations here. Why not something that represents our Black faith community? We're the city of churches. Why not have a station that represents our Black churches? So it started as an online station. So when I moved here, we were through an app, and we were online radio station. And I was the program director and morning show host. As you guys know now, we've been online HD2 and now on the FM dial, but when I started, we were only online. And like I said, I started as a program director and morning show host. So I was like, great, I'm gonna do my morning show, and I'm gonna be the program director and program the music. Cool. A lot more than that. So as I got in my job and started doing things, WBCL said that they had a team that would help me with certain things, and they have been great. But there's certain things that team couldn't do, especially culturally. So when it comes to graphics or the vibe or the feel, whether from social media to approving a chip clip to meeting with the CEO for funding, to like a normal radio station would have, maybe not starting out, but a typical radio station would at least have like a program director, a promotions person, production person, development person. You see the point. And then me, I was program director, morning show host. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go to my office, program the music. I'm gonna do the morning show, and then I'm out. Now what happened? But like I said, there were some things culturally, like approving graphics, commenting back to people on Facebook, planning all the contests that go into the on-air website. What does that look like? What's the feel? What's the vibe? What does that look like for the Black community? What does the vibe in? So you have WBCL helping and trying to team with this and helping me with graphics and different things, but there's so many other things that Mo, for Rhythm and Praise, needs. Whew. So as I'm doing this, there were very late nights, very early mornings, because I did the morning show for 3 years. I just started doing the afternoon show about 3 months ago. There's some nights I would leave at 12 a.m., get back at 5 a.m., do my morning show. Early, I didn't even have a clue. And as I'm walking through that season, I'm like, where are we going next, God? Like, what's next? Somewhere warm? And I noticed, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of superhero syndrome. A lot of women take this on. It's something where you put a lot of pressure on yourself. You try to be the superhero. You try to do everything. And a lot of you in the room probably have tried to do everything, whether it's for an organization you started, whether it's for something you're working for. I would equate Rhythm and Praise to probably like a huge financial backing from WBCL, but for me, probably like owning a business, wanting to do everything for it and having some volunteers to help you with some things, which that part is great. But the other parts, if I don't do it, I'm one staff and have a person that does the morning show. If Mo's on vacation, not much is getting done for Rhythm and Praise. So there's that feeling, that pressure of like, you got to get it done. There's superhero syndrome. This causes what? Burnout. You want to be done. What's a way to help yourself with burnout? Is saying no. Not great at that, but I'm learning. So all of you that can see superhero syndrome in yourself, that's one thing to work on. But there's something in specific with minorities. I'm a double minority. I'm a woman and Black, a minority. So we find ourselves in situations a lot of times, not just in specifically with this job, I'm talking about in general for a lot of minorities where we don't have representation. A lot of times we don't have a seat at the table. And historically, over centuries, two of the most persistent psychological myths are that Black people were immune to pain and they had weak lungs that could be strengthened through hard work. So historically, a lot of people would think that we can have more on our plate. We can do more. She can get through that. There was just a big article last year that a doctor would not give Black women anesthesia when they would go into surgery to see if they could handle it better. It has been a method, a kind of in the back of your mind known thing that black women are naturally stronger. We can do it. We can take it on. I'm a single mom, but I can do it. I can take this on. So being a double minority, you have that as well. And I just remember something dropping in my spirit as I'm like, warm state guy, where are we going next? Florida? Florida sounds good. Atlanta? Oh yeah. And I remember something dropping in my spirit saying, it's bigger than you. And I was like, was that God? Because I don't think that was God. And this is when I was in it, I don't know, a few months. And I remember thinking, okay, I'll give it 3 years. I remember talking to someone, and I'm being very real with y'all today. I want to tell you the highs and the lows, because the worst thing you could tell somebody is all the highs of your career journey, because they can't see themselves in it. I love when people can tell you the lows and the highs and how they got to where they are. I remember somebody talking about being a good steward over seasons. I think it was a pastor or something. And he was saying he was somewhere for 3 years. So I thought, oh, that sounds good. I'll be a good steward for 3 years. And at that time, that seemed like a big number. So think a young 25-year-old kid, that seems like a big number to be a good steward and faithful somewhere. So that's what leads me into this past season. I want to give you some takeaways that I've learned in these past 3 years as I've continued to push through. Now, don't get me wrong. There's been great moments and there's been low moments. When you put two organizations together, predominantly white, and then there's two staff members, so two black staff members, you're going to walk through things, especially in the light of 2020. So we have walked through things together. My executive director has been great as we've had real conversations and said, how do we give our community access? How do we walk through these things together? How do we have these conversations together? So we've walk through a lot of things together. And one of the things I've learned in my personal journey as I've walked through, had very late nights, very early mornings, a lot of joy, a lot of like, whoo, Lord, you won't have to be with me on this one. Let me keep going. It's bigger than you. Y'all got that. I'm terrible at these. Is that you can't always choose your joy, but you can, I really believe, choose your priorities. And we choose our priorities, and I really believe in my life, our priorities will ultimately control our joy. And I noticed when I started to change my priorities, when I started to focus on different things. So maybe for you, it's breathing exercises. Maybe for you, it's 5 minutes away from your kids and locking yourself in the bathroom. Maybe your priority is only work and that's all you're focused on. Or maybe your priority is only your kids and your cup is so low, you're running on empty all the time. Whatever you need to reassess your priorities in, I had to reassess my priorities. If social media is your priority, where it comes from determines where it runs out. I really believe that. So if your priority and you're getting fulfilled through social media, that's gonna run out. You'll get a quick dopamine hit, but that'll run out. Somebody likes your picture, somebody comments on your business stuff, that'll run out. If your priority is work, that'll run out. If your priority is people and those filling you up, people are flawed, that's going to run out. So I'm learning that my joy follows my priority. And the thing that will kill your joy quicker than anything is comparison. Comparing, oh, she's going on vacation this week. Oof, I haven't been on vacation in a year. Oh, she got a promotion. She's moving out of Fort Wayne. No, I'm kidding. Comparison will steal your joy quicker than anything. Comparison is a thief, and it will keep you from enjoying the season you're in. If you're looking to the left, if you're looking to the right, you're not focused on what you need to be focused on. Focus on your priorities, that business, those kids, that husband. Comparison will take your joy quicker than anything. The second thing I'm learning, what have you made priority in your life? Said that. Told you. Joy is a focus before it's a feeling. And a lot of times I want to ride on my emotions, and sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, and we can't rely. Feelings are not factual, and we can't rely on our feelings. It's good to have empathy. It's good to relate with people. I love serving. I love people. I've been to Haiti 10 times. I just love people. And then sometimes I get tired of people. But we can't ride on our feelings. I'm learning that I can't let my feelings override my commitment. So I can't be based on my feelings. We can have emotions and enjoy emotions, but we can't be led by our emotions. Can you imagine running a business only led by your emotions? I got myself into a little pickle, little business venture I tried to get into. Didn't quite work out, lost a little money. It was an emotional, quick decision. I was like, let me hop on that during COVID. Can't be led on our emotions. I really believe that joy is a heart posture. And serving showed me that joy is a heart posture. Like, how can I serve you? Like I was telling you earlier, instead of having your hands, like, how can I receive? But how can I serve these people in my business? How can I serve my clients? I remember Bishop T.D. Jakes saying, most of the people that go into business just to make money go out of business very quickly. But the people that go into business to serve people, to fill a need, they usually stay in business. Because somebody needs their need filled, somebody needs served. So I can't let my emotions override my commitment. And I want to take a little bit of time on this one. What I'm learning right now is that joy is not based on my circumstance. So I'm going to try to say this kind of quick. I've had a crazy, rewarding season. We went from online to HD2 to the FM dial just 3 weeks ago. We had a big ceremony where we talked about the history of gospel music, and we launched and we flipped the switch to 94.1. People are like, "Mo, I see you on the billboards, girl. Like, you're killing it with the headphones." And you're on air in afternoons, you're running rhythm and praise, you're doing that thing, girl, go ahead. And yeah, that's really cool, and it's been a great rewarding season on the outside. We've got lots of callers and lots of feedback as we've been on the FM dial. So imagine 3.5 years, not a lot of listeners. 3.5 years kind of in obscurity. Doing your show prep, doing your show for your radio show every day, taking time out, 4 hours, you're behind the mic. Not a lot of feedback. You're an online station. And then you hit the FM dial and you're getting lots of feedback, and it feels good and it feels rewarding. So that's been the last 3 weeks, and it's been great on the outside. On the inside, I got COVID in August of 2020. And I'm relatively healthy, young. I've always been told I'm decently healthy. I was like, cool. It was pretty mild for having COVID during the 2 weeks. And then, so I lost my smell and taste, and I had a lot of muscle fatigue. And so that happens in the end of August. So we get to September, we get to October. Most people that lose their smell and taste regain it within the first month. It goes 1 month for me, I still don't get it back. I'm like, that's okay. September, October, still don't get it back. So what I had was called anosmia, which means no smell and taste. I'd eat a cheeseburger, tastes like cardboard. Cardboard, y'all. Drink a soda, can't taste it. I remember going to smell milk and eat ranch, and I was like, hello, God? What's happening? So I'm going through anosmia. 3 months, 4 months. November, December hits. Long story short, they find I have 8-inch mass. They need to do emergency surgery, remove it. Nothing to do with COVID. Everything to do with, I don't even know. I'm healing from that. Everything goes fine. Get the surgery. January, no smell and taste. Still anosmia. No smell and taste. February, no smell and taste. I'm like, it's okay. About half of the people that get COVID lose their smell and taste. Like I told you. There's probably like 5 to 10% of us that are long callers. So we get to January, February. February, Grace College calls me. Hey, will you speak? Taylor calls me. Hey, will you speak? Yeah, I would love that. I'll speak. At that point, had anosmia, was healing from the surgery, but I was like, I'll be able to do it. March. Parosmia hits me like a flood. Parosmia is when you have a distorted smell. It's when your smell is trying to come back. So before I had no smell, your smell highly affects your taste. So if you have full smell, you're probably going to have full taste because they work so closely together. So parosmia is when your smell is trying to come back together, but unfortunately the smells are distorted because the nerve endings are not aligned. And I know if there's a doctor in here, they're probably like, girl, you told that all wrong, but paraphrasing. And honestly, a lot of doctors don't, I think I've met with 5 so far, and 1 knew what parosmia was. COVID's so new, a lot of people don't know a lot of things. So we're learning to be advocates for ourselves, the people that are dealing with parosmia. So prosmia hits me in March. I'm doing my morning show, and I'm eating my oatmeal with syrup in it, and I feel nauseous. And it's a little graphic, but I go to the bathroom, throw up, go finish my show out. Go finish my show out. And I'm like, what's happening? Like, I didn't know at that point I had prosmia. So I go home, take a nap real quick, get up, and I'm like, let me get a coffee. Like, coffee solves everything, right? I'm like, let me get a coffee. It'll be all good. So I go to Starbucks. The smell was like overwhelming. It smelled like trash. I was like, what? So I get my healthy coffee. Tastes terrible. Tastes kind of like trash. And I'm like, and burnt. I'm like, what in the world? So then I'm like, caramel frap. Like, caramel frap's going to taste perfectly fine. Get the caramel frap. Starbucks smell is still overwhelming. Caramel frap tastes exactly like my regular iced coffee. And I'm like, exact same taste. It would be like a hot dog tasting like a cheeseburger. Like, I'm like, what's going on? So I go home and I look up things about prosmia, and I'm like, man, I have full-blown prosmia. And this highly affects a lot of people. Your mental health, how you function. Think about events. Everything we do, we go for coffee. You want to go for coffee for this meeting? You want to go eat for this meeting? Oh, it's a birthday. Let's go eat. Everything. Food. It is surrounded by food. Smells. It's fall time. Pumpkin spice. Everybody. Everything is surrounded by food and smell. Those are 2 of our 5 senses. It highly affects your mental health. As a matter of fact, the CEO of Texas Roadhouse died by suicide because he had a ringing in his ear. He had long haul COVID symptoms and died by suicide because they couldn't get the ringing out of his ear. So these long haul symptoms are highly affecting people. Some people can't even function. So March, I realized, I'm like, okay, I have prosmia. The thing about prosmia and our smells is that most of us have like 296 smells, right? And then those smells create one smell. So kettle chips smell like this. You take 3 smells together and make a complex smell for kettle chips, right? There's lots of smells that if you have normal smell, they come together and they make your regular smell of that coffee, your regular smell of these chips, your regular smell of that cheeseburger, of that taste. For me, I probably have about 5. So all things smell the same, really. Like bread smell the same, fried things smell the same, fruits smell the same. There's like 5 different smells, but they're distorted. They're foul. Most people with prosmia, they would say everything smells like trash, poop, like foul smells. So March hits. I remember standing on the stage at Taylor University and smelling an overwhelming smell of bleach, because that was the smell, that was my COVID smell at the time. And I was like, God, and I was talking on some of this, joy is not a circumstance, joy is not a circumstance, and speaking it over myself. Go through that season, March, April, May. I'm like, oh, it's gonna come back. It's gonna come back. I'm in this Facebook Prosmia app where we advocate for ourselves and we learn about different things. June, my change smells, cigarette smoke hits me like a flood. Go through June, July, August, still today. As I talk to you today, I smell cigarette smoke. As when I leave here today, when somebody offered me a coffee, I'm not gonna talk about it because it's a draining conversation and I'm telling you now to encourage you, but I'm not drinking coffee because, as a matter of fact, it smells burnt and it smells like poop, okay? So, as I tell you, joy is not a circumstance. I have to do it anyway. I have to come up here and speak and encourage you anyway. In the midst of my circumstance, in the midst of me going through this right now, where everything looks good, I love to tell people my lows. I love to tell people I'm going through this right now, because you can still do that and be going through this. So whatever your this is, whatever your thing you're going through today, do it anyway. And yes, we need to take a rest for our time, for ourselves. And I try to take a rest and I try to take breaks, but do it anyway. So joy is not a circumstance, is not based on your circumstance. And the last thing I want to tell you today is that joy is now. Joy is in the present. And that's one thing that I've had to learn, that joy is right now in our current moment. That big isn't in front of you. Big isn't when you get that success. Big is whether you're working at McDonald's or you're the CEO of your company. Big is when those kids are 2 years old or when those kids are 18 years old in college. Big is now. And I've had to tell myself that God doesn't love a future version of me better than he loves me right now. So after I get the success, or after I get that job, or after I get the career, or after people see me on the billboard or in the speaking lineup, or big and joy is right now. So I want to encourage you guys today to don't wait, to do it now. Whatever you feel that's been put on your heart, whether maybe you don't believe in God, maybe you believe in a higher power, maybe something else gets you going. Whatever it is, do it now. Don't wait. Big is now. Joy is in your present moment. It's not quit focusing on the left and the right. Joy is now. You cannot complete your calling in your comfort zone. Do it scared, do it uncomfortable, do it on a stage where you smell bleach. Do it anyway. Joy is in the present moment. So your priorities will ultimately control your joy. Joy is a focus before it's a feeling. Joy isn't based on circumstance, and joy is now. It's in the present. Thank you, guys.
Any questions for Mo? A lot of good stuff that she shared. I didn't know most of it. Mm-hmm. So I knew the basketball stuff.
Yeah.
I have a question. I just want to know how to connect.
Yeah, I'll give you a card.
Okay.
Yep.
Francis.
So, Mo, we've known each other a while. Mm-hmm. Welcome to Fort Wayne.
Yes.
Have we received you well? Are there things we can do to help connect you better to the places you may not have already been in Fort Wayne? I know 3 years is the tipping point.
Good to know. No, I'm kidding. All right, see you guys. No, I'm kidding. Fort Wayne has been, like when people say it's a big, small town, Fort Wayne has been so good to me. It really has. When I made that decision that I really heard that it's bigger than you, I was like, I'm going to be a good steward and plant myself in this community. And that's what I've done. So I appreciate the offer. I'm always willing to connect with different people and organizations and funding for Rhythm and Praise so we can continue. But Fort Wayne's been so good to me. And I've had a lot of connections and met a lot of great people.
Welcome home.
Thanks.
Denise.
That was it was a similar question. How can we support you? You're at 94.1.
Yep.
You personally are on from 2 to 6 Monday
Yes.
through Saturday.
Yep. Tune in.
Else?
Yes. So tune in. Rhythm and Praise 94.1. And like I was kind of saying, gospel music is a niche market, very needed in our community. But we're introducing to our listeners that this is listener supported, that we are a ministry, and for us to continue in Fort Wayne and be implanted in our community, that people will have to give to the mission. So you can donate on our website, rmp941.org, but listening and telling people about Rhythm and Praise. Like, hey, I saw Billboard, Mo's on there, Lady Moore's in the morning, she's on there. Listen to 94.1. As people listen, I really believe they will catch the heart of the songs speak for themselves, because there's emotion, there's joy in them, but I really believe that people will feel the heart and the vision of Rhythm and Praise as they listen. So listen to 94.1. And of course, if you feel led to give and support the ministry, that's how we'll continue.
Say the website one more time, slower for us in the back.
And I used to say, I don't talk fast, you just listen slow, but I talk fast. No, you don't listen slow. I used to say everybody listens slow, but I talk fast. RNP941.org. So our call letters are WRNP, so we call ourselves RNP. So RNP941.org.
Thank you.
Kenyon.
What feedback, you mentioned getting some good feedback. What feedback have you heard from the Black community? Is it so far, and I guess in 3 weeks, so far is it hitting where you all are wanting it to hit, and kind of ministering and providing in that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think so. We've been flooded with text messages through our studio line, callers, people saying we needed this. And don't get me wrong, I stand on the shoulders of a lot of people that have tried to bring consistent gospel music to the whole city of Fort Wayne. God granted me the opportunity to be a part of an organization that put us on the dial to reach the whole city. So there's lots of people that have tried this, but us having this opportunity to reach the whole city of Fort Wayne, people have said, finally, I can drive to work and listen to rhythm and praise and listen to gospel music and be encouraged. Well, people that sound like me, look like me, representation, the feedback has been great. Now, don't just limit it to the chocolate people, because it's a Vanilla brother, he did text in, and he said that I'm a 61-year-old white guy, saw your billboard, and I just want to tell you that I just listened to Let It Rain song and I'm crying like a baby on my way to work. And he said, it's God moving through your station. So, yeah, good feedback.
Barry?
You mentioned joy is a focus before it's a feeling. So I think about our circumstances, because we so often act on how we feel about things. And we let the circumstances, the storms and the rain, everything's happening affect who we are. So when you think about how do you find your way acting into joy versus feeling your way into joy?
I have to recenter myself. What's important, Mo? What's your why, Mo? I do a breathing exercise. I do 4 in, hold it for 6 and 4 out. I center myself. I listen to a worship music if I need to, positive music. Sometimes I got to get away from the gospel because that's what I do for a living. But journal, talk to people that I know are going to lift me up, my circle. But yeah, and sometimes it's great to have joy as a feeling. Joy feels good, but it's not always going to feel like that. So consistency, yeah. Thanks, Barry.
Jacob?
Dunk at basketball?
Oh no. If I was a guy, I don't know. I might have it because I do have some good genes. But yeah, no. I did used to be able to grab that net though. But yeah, no. Rusty now.
Any other questions? Well, Mo, thank you so much for speaking.
Oh, thank you.
Here is not a parting gift. You're always welcome.
Yes. She said 3 years. I don't know what.
Yeah, so, but let's give her a big hand.
Thank you, guys.
You know, when Mo started speaking, she started speaking my language because I am a lifelong basketball guy, and I don't look like it now, but I used to have a 40-plus vert. Oh. I used to be able to dunk. Okay. Now I have a 220 vertical laying down, you know, and I can only dunk a donut. So, but just great to hear your story, your passion, and we'll have this. Scott will have this online for us here in the next week. So pass it along to your friends. We would love for them to hear Mo's inspirational story. And please pray for her. She's still got a lot going on, it sounds like, physically. Next month, in November, we always honor our military. And we've got a great speaker. What's her rank, Scott?
Lieutenant Colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Ruth Green. From our Air Force base here in the town will come and share with us. And she has an amazing story to tell. So we have a bonus, though, today. If you're able, after we leave, one of our speakers at the women's conference last Friday, we had a little technical difficulty recording her session. Andy Hines Lagaman will be here in a few minutes to re-record her message. So if you have the time, I will write a hall pass to your boss if you're going to be late to work. If you can stick around and support Andy and watch her talk as well. So, but as always, thank you for coming. Last thing, our leader today, Brian, wanted me to remind you, please follow us on LinkedIn. Follow us on Instagram. We are on both of those now. We are on Facebook as well. So big shout out to board member Cassie Lamb for taking over our Instagram for September. We'll have somebody else in October. and as we head that direction. So again, thank you for coming. Meet somebody new, and hopefully you've learned something new today. I'm glad you were here.